All right. Before I kick off our first panel for the day, I want to ask, how many of you were in the theater this morning when I started? Raise your hands. Okay, great. So next we have a panel. There are 4 people coming from very different vantage points, but all of them are asking one question. How do we build a game that lasts? To discuss this, we have Emma Farrow, the Chief Publishing Officer at Avalanche Studios Group. We also have Adam Orth, the COO at Midwest Games. We have Søren Lundgaard. He is the CEO of Go Ship Games. And then we have Johan Sjöberg. I'll give myself 2 points for getting that Swedish pronunciation right there. CEO at My Left Head Entertainment. And moderating the panel is Ian McGregor, no, not the actor, the CMO and Head of Publishing at Green Gaming Company. So, I say player, you say? Ready. I say player, you say? Ready. Please give them a round of applause as we kick off the first panel of Nordic Game 2026.
Hey, that's going to be hard to follow. So, late afternoon panel. Really excited to be here. Great cast here. But I wanted to do something a little bit different. I think I've been to this show maybe 8 times, I think, certainly. But I tend to see panels that talk about the same things. So what I was hoping to do is try and pull some insight from my very talented people here. And it isn't all about how we did really well. What I'd kind of like to focus on is the things that went wrong. And when they recognized it, and then when they were able to course correct. So that's what we're going to try and do today. We've got a few questions to go through, and then if we've got time, then we'll open it up to the floor. Okay? Does that work for everyone? Nodding? Yeah, I like participation. Here we go. First question. And just so you can prepare, it's going to come to you, Johan. So,
thank you.
What did you get wrong about how players would first encounter your game? And when did you realize it? And then what did you do?
Boom. All right, thank you. So the game that I wanted to talk about when it comes to that is a game called Star Stable Online that we built and launched about 15 years ago, which has now been in live service ever since. And there were a couple of things that we really got wrong at that time. And I think that that's something that you can be prepared to get wrong yourself, which is not knowing how the players will play your game and what they will do about it. There's just so much that when you put it together, you have very strong intentions and beliefs about what the players will do when they meet the game, and you're almost always wrong. And in our case, we had prepared a very long roadmap. We knew exactly what we wanted to build, and then really, I think that we didn't throw that out the window quick enough, to be frank, but rather to make sure that you're able to be in lockstep with your audience, listen to their feedback and adapt on the go, and making sure that you've built your game in a way that allows you to do that as you release. Because it's often, if you're too married to an idea and a long-term roadmap as you launch, that puts you in a position not to be able to be flexible, deploy, and then run with instead of against your player base.
Okay, that's really cool. I mean, fun fact, I didn't start off my entire career in games. I actually started off in the army. And the first thing I learned is that no plan survives contact with the enemy, and trust me, it really doesn't. Emma, moving to you. Okay, so looking at the same theme and knowing that you're in charge of a portfolio, does the principle scale? How do you deal with it with a broader portfolio? Course correction.
Yeah, I think I can point to one example. We launched the Angler, Call of the Wild, as a spiritual successor, sister product to the Hunter, Call of the Wild. And I think we applied a lot of the same logic of, if our players love this in the hunting world, they will of course love the exact same thing in the fishing world. And as it turns out, it's actually not one-to-one. So what we launched with was actually a quite disappointed player base, because we also didn't have nearly as much content as we had in our 8-year-old live game at that time. And we saw it pretty drastically in the user scores. I think we had a 19% rating on day 1 for the Angler. It is now got up to in the 80s, but that was really through just a lot of hard conversations internally and with our audience, asking, what do you need to see? What do you want? What is fishing? How does it differ from hunting, right? So you can't just take one for one your learnings from one game and apply it to the next. You really have to understand the space that differs as well. And you truly can't do without understanding the audience.
Okay, cool. Moving to Adam, I mean, I think we've looked at single game, portfolio. I'm looking at the big boys now. You are a gentleman who is very experienced with some of the big boys. How do the big boys course correct?
That could get me in trouble answering that question.
Vaguely.
It's a lot different than what you'd expect. In my experience, it's a lot of people running around screaming that the sky is falling. There's very rarely a course correction plan, in my experience, on these things, because the belief of the plan that we've, in this big, giant organization has laid out, it's going to work. It's perfect. We know what we're doing. And it always seems like it's a surprise when it doesn't. And that's when the kind of organization, and I don't mean the plan, I mean the organization of the company and the people tends to fall apart. And usually in those cases, it turns out to be a very small core group of people who save the day and do as best they can. But I've been very surprised at the amount of disbelief when it doesn't work out in a larger company context.
Okay, interesting. So moving to you, sir. DRG, an amazing fan base. I mean, it really is an amazing fan base. How did you know where to find them? Big question.
We were looking for players that wanted to play games like Left 4 Dead and co-op games and so on. And initially, when we started 10 years ago, and the concept was pretty much there from the beginning, and you were playing these space dwarfs, and I was questioning, are there so many people that really digs that? Shouldn't we have a broader selection of characters? And then we went to PAX East, and we showcased the game in a very early state. And there were just so many fans, not our fans yet, but game fans that came by, and they looked up and they were like, oh, they're all dwarfs. I want to play this game. And we figured out this going for a niche like that is really strong. And we've just been building on that. So that was one of our, you can say, angles into building the community, was this desire to just play cool, hard-working dwarfs.
Okay. Very cool.
In space.
Yeah, in space. Let's change it up a bit. So I'm going to move to question number 2. And this is really about sort of old versus new publishing models. It's something that I'm actually going to have to deal with in a meeting after a few beers in a couple of hours. So I'll be really interested in the feedback on this. So the question is there a moment where the old launch and move model, or launch and move on model, visibly stopped working for you? And what did it look like for the inside? And it's easy, Adam. It's you to start on this because you are a poacher turned gamekeeper. So
I guess I would kind of reframe the question and maybe look at it from what we're doing now. The old model doesn't work anymore. It's inherently broken, and that comes from a complete, in my opinion, and in my company's opinion, a complete defragmentation of both the development and the publishing space. So when you're looking at, how you publish games, there's really kind of no playbook anymore. And what we're trying to do is identify the kind of common new things that are happening. We like to call ourselves, and what we do, modular in terms of publishing. And it's really about addressing the things that the game and the developer needs, as opposed to, here's publishing, this is what we're going to do for your game because this is what we've been doing for 30, 40 years. And that just doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
The speakers in the session before were saying, the budgets have ballooned, but the games necessarily haven't. And we're very tuned into that at Midwest Games because we publish so many different types of things, and we publish games on our own, and we do modular publishing services for other games. So it's really about understanding what the game is in a new way, so that when you're looking forward to, going beyond, the title of this talk, Beyond Launch, it's like, what is the action plan that makes this thing be successful that isn't what we've been doing before, because that model doesn't work on every game now. Okay.
And I think that last point, is critical, to the next question. So, Ghost Ship stayed with DRG long after many studios would have potentially, moved on. So why did you stay? What could you see? What was the opportunity that you saw?
So we never designed Deep Rock to be like a forever game, like it turned out to be. We actually thought, well, we'll do early access, we'll follow up on it, we'll do a 1.0, and then we'll do another game. Because we came from that old model. That was our thinking, right? We were old school in that thinking. But during early access, it became quite clear that whenever we did an update that resonated with what the players really wanted, when we really listened and we did that, player numbers just rose up. And we saw that the floor of the player numbers just got higher and higher. And each time we did that, we sold more copies. We're like, this is an interesting machine. We keep just doing this. How high can it go? Yeah. And we kept doing that for years. Yeah. And it's been a very, very lucrative way for us to build the game. Luckily, it's also been very fun to work on that game.
Yeah. Okay. So there is a different way, a natural evolution. And then Emma, I think, looking across, your sort of portfolio, when you've got different stakeholders to manage, business stakeholders to manage, how do you persuade them, I suppose, that if a game's got legs, to stay vested even after day one, week one, month one, quarter one, H1? That's the question.
I think that's a pretty easy way to persuade someone if a game is working. But the Hunter Call of the Wild, we are coming up on 10 years of livelihood, also not intentionally made as one, I think, when we first launched. And there's a real reason that we haven't gone after a sequel for the game, where, 10 years in, I think everybody understands the complexity of tech debt and the forces that work against you to continue to manage a live title like that especially wasn't built to sustain that. But that is where our player base is. That's where our community is. They've invested many, many thousands of hours. They've created their hobby around the Hunter Call of the Wild. They are deeply invested in their equipment, their progress, the world that we've built around it. And so to go into a sequel, which again, I guess going back to my Angler example, where we didn't come out with the same level of content, and rarely does one in a sequel, right? You can't match the same number of maps or worlds or equipment on day one as you could in your original game. And we don't want to do that to our players. We want them to have this game forever. And so I think that's a really easy value proposition to sell. The game is doing great. The community is healthy and happy. We must continue to invest.
Okay, yeah, perfect. And Johan, I suppose to come to you, you chose a different path. And I suppose the question is, Was that something you started to do from the beginning? Is it something that you realized? How did it, how did it evolve, for you?
When it comes to Star Stable Online, really the business model evolved over when we launched with the idea that we wanted to be a subscription game. In order to be a subscription game, you need to give people reasons to come back, right? And in our case, we're a very small team. When we launched the game, we're about 8 people. The team's today about 150 people, continuing to build 15 years in. But the choices we made early on were, A, we would release often so that the players had something to come back to. So we're now approaching 15 years, as I said, and that counts for 750-ish Wednesday releases. So every Wednesday, new content drops. The challenge with that, naturally, is for us the expectations from the players on what that drop is going to be on a Wednesday. That escalates quite quickly. And again, going back to if you haven't built your systems, right, that's a way for you to get caught up in making those weekly updates instead of sequels. So one thing that we looked at was how do we, on top of the subscriptions, actually start to make sense of how we make money, and that had us lead down the path of building out the in-game economy gradually, step by step. And that's always something that's quite hard to innovate around, specifically when you're targeting an audience where you don't want to monetize frustration, you want to make monetization fun for the players, not to have them pay for getting out of the boring stuff, but rather have them pay to enhance their experience, and striking that balance. And we've done that over the years too. So those have been a few of the things that we've been working with, evolving compared to how other models might look. So we went from being strictly subscription to more actually subscription plus free to play. Essentially, we put a paywall in to allow you to get into spending the real money.
Okay, thank you. So any subscription needs a community, and I think that's sort of where I'm going to go next. I meet developers all the time. One of the biggest questions is about, we look at growth, we look at the risk profile in terms of growth, in terms of my business. Communities are absolutely vital from day one. So I think, Emma, let's start with you, on community. And I think, what are the things that potentially you've seen that some studios get wrong? What advice could you give them, when it comes to sharing their game, getting people excited about their vision, and then growing that community?
I think the biggest advice I can give is don't wait till day one to start building that community. I think many people are really afraid to bring whatever they're working on to their target audience early, because maybe they churn out, maybe you can't re-engage them, whatever it may be that's stopping people from bringing the game to testers really early. It's actually what's holding them back, because frankly, if you wait until day one, you are on such an uphill battle to be able to build that community through largely paid marketing. Whereas if what you do is bring your community along with you on the entire journey of development, you're going to be so much better off, because you then go to market because you've built a community, not go to market and hope you build one on the other side. And so that's actually the ethos of why we've built our R&D program in the way that we have, where we have small teams bringing their prototypes to market every 4 months. And it's very targeted players. It's people who play in the competitor space in which we're looking at. And so essentially our golden cohort that we are using as free play testers. But the hypothesis is that if we are bringing them along the ride with us and they're part of the development, they're invested, this becomes their long-term hobby. They're able to give feedback before we've invested so much that we can't kind of pivot and change course. And at the same time, then they become stakeholders in the game alongside, the executive team at Avalanche. So everybody that is in part of these testing programs, we need to really invest, though, into keeping them around. It's not a shoot it off for 4 months, go quiet. It's a pretty significant time investment, but frankly, your community is the most valuable resource you have, your own community, where you're not blocked by a different platform or a marketing channel. So it's 100% worth the investment.
Okay, excellent. Søren, so DRG's community has got a very different texture, I think, to most. I mean, I'd love to hear some insight, in terms of how it got there. Did you course correct? What makes it as diverse as it has become?
So when we started, we really wanted to do the whole open development and build a community. We hadn't tried that before, but we just followed all the good examples out there. And of course, we also created a co-op game, so we put in a lot of thoughts into game design on how people should help each other and feel good about that. And initially, we were positively surprised at how well it all worked and how nice people were and how much they talked about being nice to each other and so on. And we thought it was also partly because we as developers had that attitude and tried to bring a good mood in the room. But then we actually found out that it is the game itself and the game design in itself that is actually the most important factor here. And the reason we know that is we launched in 2018 in early access, 2020 1.0, and in 21 we went to PlayStation. And in 1 month, through the PlayStation Plus program, we got out to 3 million players at once. So we had no chance to influence that community. That was just instant. It was all through the game. And it was equally positive as everywhere else. So to me, that says that you can actually game design your way to a positive community. And I now know, last week we launched Rogue Core, and it has much more friction deliberately designed into the game, and that has turned into a less fun community, I can tell you.
Okay.
And that's, unfortunately just proving that fact again. Okay. So be really clever and careful about how you design multiplayer gameplay.
Okay. Excellent. Adam, from the platform side, have you seen patterns, throughout your career where either things have gone wrong or things haven't gone the way that you thought they might be? Which communities have thrived, which have died? Just general insight, really, I think, from broader experience.
I would say overall, and something that I'm really focused on dealing with today, as well as for quite some time, is this from developer and community balance is this misunderstanding of what early access is. That's the launch of your game, right? And if you are not prepared for that, and I talk to a lot of developers who have this early access goal and then this launch goal. That's fine, but the early access is the launch.
Yeah.
The launch thing is upkeep and recommitment, right? So that is a pattern of mistake, and like I said, I do see that all the time. And if you are not ready to activate that community at early access, you're going to fail.
Yeah.
When it comes to this, this launch. And I actually can't stand the term early access. Just call it launch.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, but I think, we hear it a lot, so I'm completely with you on that. And it is a launch. And then once you are out of the gates, you then have to listen, and you have to listen harder, and you have to do the things potentially that people are asking you to do. So I'm very much with you on that. So Johan, last question on this before we move on. Star stable players identify with the game as part of who they are. It's very personal. Was that designed, or did it organically sort of evolve? So really opening the secrets now, I think.
Yeah. No. So when it comes to, I think working with the community for Star Stable Online. Like Star Stable Online was designed in the way it was based on the fact that we were building for a target audience that didn't really have real games, if you will, built for them. So with at the outset, when we launched in 2010, we were building for a young female audience, but with hardcore game mechanics stolen from Best in Class, right? The original name of the company was World of Horsecraft, so the inspiration is quite obvious. And given that we knew that these were people that took their special interests extremely seriously, right? It's like when you are interested in this particular life, in the equestrian lifestyle, you identify strongly with that, which meant that we needed to approach that with authenticity and care. And I think that that's the one thing that we did extremely well from the beginning, where we kind of lost our way midway when we were growing and we started to become a little bit scared about being transparent, honest, and lost our authenticity during the way. And I think that that's one piece of advice for me, is it's like really to make sure that you understand what your players care deeply about, and you invest yourself in that and make sure that they understand that you care about what they care about, and don't go corporate, right? Stay authentic. That's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think authenticity, absolutely key. Just looking at time, I'm going to skip one question and move to a question that, Adam, I know is going to be very key to your heart. It's the publishing as a service model. And it's built on the premise that the old structure doesn't deserve developers. We've talked about it a little bit already. But I suppose what I'm interested in is the durability, I suppose, that's required in a new model that the traditional model ignores. So what are the gaps that new models fill? And if, you know, for the people in the audience who may be looking for deals, who may be reaching out to publishers, what are the questions they should be asking? What are the questions they should be asking, I suppose?
It's less questions. It's more about, I would actually say that we're the ones asking the questions. You know, today, most games, you know, they're self-published, especially on Steam. So when a game comes to us, for example, we're asking the questions like, how far along is this? Like, what, you know, all the normal things that any publisher would ask. But again, I would say that when people come to us, the things that they need are so micro-focused that there's no, like, you can't even drop them into buckets. It's like, you know, if we do modular publishing approach, some people, here's an example. Someone came to us recently and said, we just want to make our game. I don't want to make fucking social media videos, right? Like, and he actually said that, and he was like upset about it. And he was like, can we just hire you to do that one thing, right? And that's an example of, like, that just wouldn't have happened before, right? And so we approach it as, like, you can have the whole menu or you can pick a la carte. And frequently, the things that people pick are very different because their story of how they became a developer and the game that they're making, and whether they bootstrapped it or they had an investment and they're running out and they're you know, right on the edge of launching, like, it's different for every time. So just, you know, like I keep saying, inherently the old model does not work in that sense. And that's how people are building, publishing, and how players are finding games now because of these, like, hyper-focused, really custom curated responses and plans to publishing.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, certainly from our perspective at Green Man Gaming, a lot of the stuff that that we spend a lot of time in is sort of in the weeds. So we started off in retail. We understand currency, pricing, FX, all the things that typically, you might not worry about. So when you are loading your game onto Steam and many people hit auto-allocate, for their currencies, don't do that. Lock your keys up. Make sure they can't be exploited. So that's a lot of the stuff that we get involved in. Let's move to Søren. So Ghost Ship now on both sides, of the equation here, studio and publisher. Does the view change when it's your own money? Tough question.
It's never really our own money. I mean, it's always you're investing into the future. Of course, it's nice when you don't have to ask anyone else for money. I think that's the nice part. But other than that, I don't think we're seeing it differently.
Yeah, it's more about the care, when you're spending your own.
Yeah, I mean, it's still, sometimes we've asked ourselves, not your own money as a company, but if it was my own money,
exactly.
would you then bet this, right? Yeah. That puts the question sometimes a bit differently, and it is super high risk to invest into games and game studios. Are you investing into studio, but also publishing? Most of the time we allocate the money and then we assume that it will come back as zero, and we're really happy if it comes back as something more than that.
Absolutely.
And then what we hope to do also as a publisher is to make sure that the developer team at least survives, so that they can learn from that and do it again. And I can see that what will happen with us is that we will, as much as possible, continue to work with the same teams that we have worked with before, just to make sure that iteration keeps on going.
Yeah, okay. Emma, question to you. Avalanche, AAA publisher, lots of games, great games. Does your sort of go-to-market, I suppose, in terms of how you approach developers, do you adapt it? Do you change it? How flexible can you be?
And we have a model where we self-publish, and then we also work with some external publishers, depending on the game. So I think I'll go actually back to a previous experience I had at Congregate when I was working there in mobile publishing. And I think the way that the deals were structured was very one-size-fits-all, I think, back in those days, a decade ago, maybe. And found that it was really, really hard for long-term alignment between development and publishing to stay equally committed to the project long-term. So whereas we felt, maybe on the publishing side, like, hey, this has fantastic commercial legs, the developer said, yeah, but we have to go through all this recoup and we can't invest long-term in the same way that you can. So I think that there are elements of the model, the old model, that are a little bit broken. And, if I were to do it today, 100% I would structure deals very differently, where the incentive and upside for the developer is extremely strong, and they have the opportunity to keep building from day one. Additionally, we very much believe that the best products come out of publishing, product development, all being quite intertwined, all the way from kind of initial conception all the way through the live operations. And so it's not just a toss things over the fence back and forth where, so the developer works on the project, gives it to marketing, they take it to market. It really has to be a fully integrated, embedded setup, whether you're doing your own games or whether you're working in a third-party setup. Otherwise, I don't think you're going to get the ultimate yield.
Perfect answer. Johan.
Yes.
16 years, slightly different approach. Rather than sort of choosing a traditional model, what were the gaps that sort of made you almost turn your back on that and then pursue a different course of action?
So in terms of like the go-to-market for Star Stable Online,
in terms of the model,
in terms of model. Yeah. So I think that we wanted to build longevity into the model from the get-go, and as you see, it's like we'd seen a lot of fire and forget approach, which was the largely common approach in those days. So we really wanted to flip that, and we did that in a few interesting ways. Like for us, when it came to how we actually approached things, we tried to find different ways to reach our audience that might have been a little bit unexpected, or as you would say, perhaps unorthodox as well. So first of all, we did have a pre-existing community, and I think that that's one thing that's important to remember, and we did interact with them. But then we also didn't have a lot of money. It's like the original game, again, built by a very small team. It's like, how would we approach getting that game in front of people and a wider audience? And when you have no money, we actually did media for rev share deals because TV at this point in time was actually a thing. So people watched linear TV. You could sell commercial space, and there were spaces that those people couldn't sell because it was weird. So we did deals in Germany, Netherlands, Poland, the UK, and the US, where we sold future rev share in those markets on those players for great media deals with them. So that's one of the ways that we kind of broke, if you will, the traditional model.
Perfect. We're getting close to the end of time, and I do want to leave 5 minutes for questions. So, more of a personal question, I think, for everyone here. So I'll skip to the last one, and I think, it's the time machine question. So if you could go back to the start of your current role and give yourself one piece of advice, whether it be about publishing, the model, community, whatever it might be, your relationship with players, what would that piece of advice be? Søren, let's start with you on that.
Yeah, so I would start by saying to myself that you don't know what you're doing, but you're doing everything right with Deep Rock Galactic. But later on, when you're going to decide to do a game called Rogue Core, be really careful, because you can't clearly design a game to just be for a specific subset of your fan base. You cannot say to the others, don't come and buy the game, don't come and be negative about the game because it's not for you. They will come because they love your original game. And I'm not sure what the solution is, but I'll at least give myself that warning, because maybe we would have taken some different path with our new game. So, yeah.
Indeed. Let's stay on the sofa. Emma, what about you?
It's a good question. No, I think maybe building on what you've said is you can build the systems, you can build all of the things around setting up the right communication channels, etc. But ultimately the players are going to take their own autonomy and they're going to make their own decisions, and you're going to have to be flexible. The first plan probably isn't the final plan. So just have a good long-term vision, but remain adaptable.
Okay, good. Let's move to this sofa. Adam. Same question.
Nobody knows what they're doing. Nobody has a crystal ball. Don't be afraid.
That's really good advice.
Yeah.
Really good advice. Johan?
No, I think that I come back to a lot of what Emma said. It's like, again, be flexible, watch how the community plays, adapt the product to live in harmony with how they want to play. Don't fight against the way that they play the game just because you have a vision, because that's going to fail, and that's going to be an expensive failure.
All right. So now a chance for you guys. We've got about 5 minutes left. I can see a few hands up. Let's go in alphabetical order. We've got a mic coming round. Yeah, please, if you could say who you are.
Hello, my name is Ernestos, and I would like to ask you a question, because it was mentioned that you had post-launch plans that have been set in for a long time and you haven't discarded them early enough. So would you choose to not have a post-launch plan, or have it but make it as flexible as possible to react to what the user base wants?
Anyone like to take that?
I can start. You should have the plans, but you should definitely not post them on launch day. Wait a little bit and then adapt. But of course you need the plans, and like Adam said with the army thing, like they will fail, or what, that was you, when they meet the enemy, which is the players.
Yeah.
But you still need that plan, and then adapt. But don't post it on day one.
No, and if I can add to that, I do think that, like Adam said it, he used the Chinese menu context essentially. It's like, if you have a lot of ideas for what you want to build, it's like, make sure that you have a lot of ideas for what to build next, but which ones you pick should be highly informed by how the players play the game. So make sure that you're not locked down a single corridor, but that you have that flexibility of picking and choosing the things that you would like to do that fits to be the way that the players have reacted to your release.
I would also add, definitely have a plan, always have a plan, but also be prepared for the complete unknown. I'll use Mixtape as an example. Who could have foreseen that, the kind of, discourse that's come out of that game, and certainly the planning around what to do and how to do it has significantly shifted on that game through something that you couldn't know that would happen. So you have to be flexible and prepared to chuck your plan out the window.
I would add one thing on the timeline, though, is that you want to show really quick momentum and sustained commitment to players quite quickly. So your post-launch content should probably be in development before you launch to a degree, so that you're able to come out quite quickly and show. That doesn't mean that it's your forever plan, but there should be something that's quite locked in.
Perfect. Hands up, questions? Mic person, just choose one. Hi, just say who you are and then address the question, please.
Hi, I'm Remco. And my question is in relation to the topic of game lifetimes, and specifically how you guys envision, what's it called? The Stop Killing Games initiative, for example, to impact how you look at game lifetimes, and yeah, that basically. You know what the Stop Killing Games initiative is?
Yeah, and that's a tricky one because there's a lot of technical implications in Stop Killing Games that makes that discussion very, very difficult to take in public. I mean, I think all of us are for, like, we would like games to live forever, but it's also problematic in the modern day where things stop working. And then who has the right to keep them on working? It's very complicated. Yeah, that's. I mean, it's also a matter of money, but in many ways, it's lots of other things that plays in that makes the industry in general not be too fond of the Stop Killing Games thing. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe we've got time for one more before we close. Different person, not you, sir. Someone at the front, maybe over here. Thank you. Hi.
Hello, my name is Levan, and I want to ask you advice about newcomer studio in the industry. You talked about community building, and I have a question about what content, if we are working on an FPS shooter, for example, what content is enough to start building community? Is it a teaser? Is it like screenshots from the game? Or we should first accumulate as much content as possible to begin building this community?
Okay, let's give this to Adam.
There's a game that just came out called Mouse PI for Hire. Great game. If you have not played that game, it's great. Also, first-person shooter. The origin story of that game is really interesting. They just kind of decided they want to make a prototype of it, and they filmed a short clip of it and put it on TikTok, and it exploded and went viral like over the weekend. And so they had to make the game. And that's basically like they had to start building their community like by accident right there on day one. And that's a cautionary tale, but it's also the answer. It's never too early to start doing that.
Okay. I think that's time. So, team in the audience, I hope you've got some snippets, and I hope you've got some stuff that's valuable that you can take back to your teams, think about, talk about, and then hopefully execute against. It is a humbling array of talent on here. So from me, thank you very much, guys. Please, a round of applause. And we wish you every success wherever you may be on your development journey. And I hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.